What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking our top 5 most undervalued running backs heading into the 2021 fantasy football season. Basically, these are the guys right now heading into the drafts that, per quote-unquote consensus rankings, are in reality way too low and have a great chance of improving on their ADP and just across all projections exceeding them and being guys that could win you games point blank across all formats. So make sure to tune in. And if you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe. Let us hear it in the comment section, whether you agree, disagree with these names, and what other running backs you would include in this category. And a quick reminder, get yourself a copy of the 2021 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. It's got everything you want at a great price, top 150 overall players, in terms of standard and PPR rankings, individual player bios, tiers, projections, and general fantasy football advice. All the details in the description. Just check it out online at alldaypigskin.com. But with that being said, let's get right into it. And a quick note that this will be based on PPR scoring, where here we have got our ADP rankings pulled up via Fantasy Pros, which lets us see the projections based on different platforms. And with that being said, the first name here that we're going to kick things off with is the one, the only Austin Ekeler. And if you guys have watched my mock drafts before, my other breakdowns, you know how big I am on Austin Ekeler heading into 2021. First and foremost, the Chargers did an amazing job this offseason improving the offensive line. That will not only help Justin Herbert, but the rushing attack as well. And that's a great sign for Austin Ekeler and for the entire offense as a whole. On top of this, Justin Herbert emerged last year as a young, big upside type of quarterback that heavily targets and trusts Austin Ekeler. And speaking of heavily targeted, honestly, other than Keenan Allen on this team, Austin Ekeler is the second best pass catcher for the Chargers. He is going to be peppered with targets. And that's why in PPR here, we feel like he's way too low on this list. You know, by looking at these averages, he comes in at the number 10 overall running back, which means he could be going towards the start of the second round. And even, look, we anticipate that his ADP will rise come August, September, maybe to the end of the first round. We still believe that that's way too low. Ekeler, in all honesty, is the closest thing we have to Christian McCaffrey. Maybe you can throw in Alvin Kamara there, but the quarterback situation is better for the Chargers. That's why we give Ekeler the edge in terms of potentially being the next 1,000 running back, 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving. He has that upside. And right now, people may be a little bit sour on him because he did miss some time last season. But when he was healthy, the guy was absolutely great. A cheat code in PPR. Again, we're highlighting that this is more so PPR based. Don't forget that. But even in standard formats, he gets so much work as a receiver that his floor is relatively high. He is a safe option, one of the most targeted guys on that offense, point blank. And honestly, right now, we would have zero problem if in PPR scoring, you were drafting him as a top 3, top 4, worst case, top 5 running back. He has a great chance to exceed his current draft status. And for that reason, we view him as a high-end RB1. Now, moving on to our number 2 guy, we want to highlight Clyde Edwards-Helaire of the Kansas City Chiefs. Because no doubt CEH was someone that burned you last season. He was disappointing. You know, after the Damian Williams news comes out that he's opting out, Clyde Edwards-Helaire's stock skyrockets all the way into the middle of the first round. Maybe you drafted him 5th, 6th, 7th overall, something like that. And to be fair, the first part of the season, before the addition of Le'Veon Bell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was delivering. The biggest, kind of thing that was missing was the fact that he wasn't getting those touchdowns right at the goal line. But then when Le'Veon Bell came, the volume just dropped for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Now, Le'Veon Bell is gone. Damian Williams, no more. He's in Chicago, and that was his biggest kind of competition last year and probably would have been this season as well. Let's not forget CEH was the first running back selected in last year's draft. The Chiefs could have gone any number of ways. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is also a very good, versatile running back in terms of being a rusher and a pass catcher. Now, yes, his pass catching upside isn't as big as an Austin Ekeler because you have a Tyreek Hill and a Travis Kelce there. But on the flip side, CEH is on the Kansas City Chiefs offense, one of the most, if not most, high-scoring offenses in the NFL. They're pretty much good for 30-plus points every single week, so that means a lot of scoring opportunities. And the best thing right now about CEH is that he is extremely undervalued. I would say it like this. Last year, people were probably way too bullish on him, a lot of expectations, and now they've overcorrected by, after being disappointed from his 2020 performance, just kind of dropping him down their rankings when in reality, he should be higher, and he'd be someone that I have zero problem drafting in the middle to the end of the second round, considering the other running backs in his tier, the offenses they find themselves on. Also, let's not forget the Chiefs did a pretty good job of upgrading the offensive line this offseason. That was a big issue for them in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl, and they improved on that as well. The arrow is pointing up for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I think we're probably going to see in 2021 kind of what we were hoping we would in 2020. Next up, coming in at number 3, we have got Chris Carson of the Seattle Seahawks, who here comes in all the way at running back 21. Now, maybe this would be a little bit higher in standard scoring, but honestly, since we're focusing on PPR, this is criminally low for Chris Carson because I don't understand how you can have him below J.K. Dobbins, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery. He's not in a running back by committee. He's the clear-cut guy in Seattle. Don't get me started on Rashad Penny, who hasn't done anything since being drafted to Seattle. And look, the Seattle Seahawks themselves said we're not going to pick up his option. So that means this is probably going to be his last season in Seattle. And he's been so injury-riddled. In fact, now kind of dealing with another bugging issue. So it's going to be Chris Carson yet again. And the thing that people forget about Carson is that he's also an underrated pass catcher. He's good for between 35 to 50 catches on the season. And as great as Russell Wilson is, in terms of airing out the football, the Seattle Seahawks would prefer to let Chris Carson do his thing and not put it all on the shoulders of Russell Wilson, which we've seen before. And that's good for volume-wise for Chris Carson. He's got a pretty safe floor rushing-wise, over 1,000 yards, I would say. And he's one of these stout running backs that has a lot of value right there on goal line situations. Kind of put your head down and just get in there. And again, undervalued pass catcher. I think on the Seattle offense, which again, it has some tendencies of being up and down, but at the end of the day, they do a decent job of scoring the football. I like the upside for Chris Carson. I think he's way too undervalued right now. In drafts, I've seen him go at the end of the third round, in the middle of the fourth round. To me, even though I do believe his ADP again will rise, because it's almost as if Chris Carson's the poster boy of undervalued running backs year after year, I would have no problem selecting him at the end of the second round. I'm just looking at the other running backs in front of him, and I'm kind of scratching my head as to why, you wouldn't have Chris Carson ahead of J.K. Dobbins, Josh Jacobs, Sanders, Montgomery, again, just to highlight those names. But enough on Chris Carson. Let's move down now this list and look at our fourth name here in Ronald Jones of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you're looking at a running back to target for Tampa Bay, I'd be looking at Ronald Jones. He has by far the highest rushing upside of this team. And even though there are other running backs to contend for volume, when we get down to this range, 25 to 30s, it's going to be that type of situation. And we don't want to just focus on the guys that, are Myles Gaskin or Mike Davis type of running backs. We want to give you some other guys that are a little bit lower on this list that still have good breakout potential. And again, here you see Leonard Fournette higher than Ronald Jones on this list because it is PPR, but I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. Giovanni Bernard was added to the team, so I do think Leonard Fournette will kind of lose volume more so than any other running back on this list, specifically Ronald Jones. Jones is a guy that, yes, he's not used as much as a pass catcher, but rushing-wise, he is the guy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this Tampa Bay offense is extremely loaded, pretty much returned every single starter from their Super Bowl run to 2021. They've got a good offensive line. They've got wide receivers that'll put you in scoring situations. They've obviously got Tom Brady. And Ronald Jones has high touchdown upside. Yes, he is more one-dimensional than the guys that we have mentioned, so he would be higher on our standard rankings, and, we prefer to get him there. But even in PPR, he is a good value as someone with decent upside. I would say, looking at his value, I wouldn't have him that much lower than a Josh Jacobs because, again, the Raiders' offensive line, not all that great. You've added Kenyon Drake. Jacobs, a one-dimensional type of running back, just getting those rushing yards. I think Ronald Jones is in a more or less similar type of situation, and the fact that you can get him multiple rounds later just screams value, in my opinion. That's why he's undervalued. You're going to very easily get Ronald Jones in like the 6th, 7th, 8th round. And again, I think that considering the price you're paying at that point in time, it's not all that scary to take a chance on a Ronald Jones, considering that he's in a great situation and he's going to be the guy in terms of rushing yards for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, coming in at number 5 here, we're going to again scroll down this list until we get to the number 46 running back on the list, Jamaal Williams of the Detroit Lions. And this one, if you will, is probably our flyer on this list, but everything you have heard from the Detroit Lions, and it might all be coach speak, so we do take that into account, but they've said, hey, we want to use Jamaal Williams. We brought in Jamaal Williams for a reason, and we might go with a hot hand approach. So what does that mean? Well, for all the DeAndre Swift truthers out there, probably making them a little bit nervous because Jamaal Williams has been a very serviceable backup during his days in Green Bay, and he's filled in very well for Aaron Jones when he has been hurt. And right now, especially if he's splitting time with DeAndre Swift or something like that, then he's going to carry some pretty good value and honestly might be a guy that I don't even know if we can consider a handcuff because he's going to have standalone value. And even though it's going to be a situation where it might be a running back by committee in Detroit, Jamaal Williams is going to return a lot of value compared to where he is ranked. He's ranked below guys like, Tony Pollard, below Zach Moss, below Naheem Hines. And yes, I get it. The Detroit Lions are a mess, but you don't need to be a good team to produce good fantasy production for individual players. We've seen it a bunch of times. The Panthers a couple years ago when Christian McCaffrey absolutely exploded, they weren't all that good. Now, I'm not saying Jamaal Williams is anywhere near in that conversation, in that realm, but Jamaal Williams is a guy that has great pass catching upside, which is why I think he should be a lot higher on this list compared to, some other names. Again, I don't know why you don't have him almost as high as Kenyon Drake. The Lions did improve their offensive line in the draft, and as out as people are on Jared Goff, look, Goff has been able to have multiple fantasy viable options during his time with the Rams. Look at Robert Woods, look at Cooper Kupp. Jamaal Williams is going to be a good pass catcher. He's going to get some rushing opportunities as well because DeAndre Swift not really a prototypical rusher either in terms of being like that bruising running back. So I think we're going to see some opportunities from Jamaal Williams. And again, considering his price that you're going to be able to get him in double-digit rounds, I would definitely probably, again, if I have DeAndre Swift, just in worst case scenario, be targeting Jamaal Williams as well. But don't be surprised if somebody kind of snipes you there, even if they don't have DeAndre Swift. That's telling that Jamaal Williams has standalone value. And again, I think he will have no problem outproducing his current ADP of 46th overall, way too low in my opinion. But with that, we wrap up this look at our top 5 most undervalued running backs heading into the 2021 fantasy football season. And as always, let us hear it in the comment section. Did you agree? Disagree? What other running backs would you include on this list? And if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. And a final reminder, go get yourself a copy of the 2021 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide at alldaypigskin.com. All the details in the description. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.